Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for some pre-modern action. Today I am playing a Phyrexian Devourer combo deck. Now we haven't put a fully dedicated A plus B I win the game combo deck on the channel in the pre-modern format yet, so here we are. I have a friend who wants to take this to a tournament soon, so I said I would give it a little run through on the channel and we can sort of see how it feels and get a little bit more information and testing ahead of that. So what is this deck's combo? Well, we have this card called Phyrexian Devourer. It's a weird old clunky card. It says that we can exile the top card of our library to put X +1/+1 counters on this creature, where X is the exiled card's mana value. Then it has a separate ability, which is really important. When this creature's power is 7 or greater, sacrifice it. So the way this works is you exile the top card, you put some counters on it. When it hits 7, it already has the counters you've put on. So then the trigger goes on the stack. Then you can respond by exiling more cards and putting more counters on it. You can keep doing this and just stack up lots and lots of sacrifice triggers that never resolve. And then what are we doing with this giant creature that we can make basically as large as we want? Well, we are going to fling it at our opponent for as much damage as we want. So that's the main game plan. We also have Altar of Dementia, which can mill our opponent out because we can put enough counters on it so that it'll just wipe our opponent's library. Now, in pre-modern, people do play Gaia's Blessings, sometimes in the main deck. So knowing when to fire off the Altar of Dementia and when to try and hold for the Fling is going to be important, but hopefully we can string that one together. The rest of this deck is a combination of protection pieces, tutor pieces, and a little bit of prison-y action too. So we've got ourselves defense grid so that our opponent can't respond when we're trying to do our combo on our turn. We've got Mind Stone to try and ramp out what we're up to, alongside the Lotus Petal here. The Mind Stone can also turn into a draw effect if we need it to. We've got ourselves Tsabo's Web, so we don't have to worry about pesky Rishadan ports ruining our day, or also manlands this can shut down for a bit as well. Then we've got ourselves the Impulse to try and dig our way towards the combo. We have Tangle Wire to shut down what our opponent's doing so we can buy ourselves time, because in theory, if we have enough time, we will assemble A plus B and win the game. We've got some Lotus Petals to ramp out, and then we also have Tinker, which is legal in pre-modern, because mostly the artifacts you're tutoring up aren't particularly great. So this can turn like Altar of Dementias, Defense Grids, Mind Stones, Tsabo's Webs, Tangle Wires, even Lotus Petals into a combo piece and help us win the game that way. So that's really nice to have access to. And sometimes we'll even tinker for a Tsabo's Web if it really shuts down our opponent's deck. There are a few decks in the format that struggle against Tsabo's Web. Mana base wise, we've got 4 Ancient Tombs, 3 City of Traitors, 3 Crystal Veins, 3 City of Brass, 4 Gemstone Mine, and 4 Shivan Reef. So we've got a lot of rainbow lands and we've got a lot of soul lands. Something that I think might be missing from this list is a Croesus's Catacombs, which is one of the lair lands that taps for red, black, and blue. The cost is you have to bounce a non-lair card when you play it, a non-lair land. So what I like to do with that is have the City of Traitors on 1 so you can actually play like your Mind Stone or your Tsabo's Web or Altar of Dementia. And on turn 2, you float 2 off of this, then you play the Catacombs. You stack the trigger so you bounce the City of Traitors instead of sacking it. Then you have 3 mana for that turn without actually losing your land permanently. That's a really nice play that maybe this deck could leverage. I have seen some builds that do it, but we're going to try this particular build today. In the sideboard, we have Rushing River, so we can bounce some scary permanents that are messing us up. Same with the Hoodwink. We've got ourselves a bunch of blue blasts, a bunch of red blasts, and some Pyroclasms. So just keeping it nice and simple, sweeping some stuff out. Let's get stuck in and see if we can combo some people right in the heart with our Phyrexian Devourer. Have you got magic cards you don't want taking up space in your home, or do you just need some extra spending money? Well, my lovely sponsors, 3for1 Trading, are buying all collections, big and small. They are one of Europe's biggest traders and have a transparent process to sell them cards and make sure you're getting a good deal. Click the link in the description of this video to get an offer on your cards today. Alright, here is our opener. So we have some tools here. We don't really want a bunch of Devourers in hand. I do like the Defense Grid and I do like the Tsabo's Web. We're going to be digging a little bit with a hand like this, but we're going to try it to see how it works, because that's what we're trying to work out here, like which hands are keepable and that sort of thing. So we'll try this one out. I'm going to play this Crystal Vein. I'm not going to immediately sacrifice and turn it into a Mind Stone. We're just going to try and not have it waste landed this turn cycle and then turn it into a thing that can produce us mana over multiple turns. Alright, a Swamp. We're getting Festering Goblin. I love this guy. I think this guy is underrated in pre-modern. It's very good into opposing aggro decks. Alright, so we have a plan. We just need a bunch of mana to get there. Here comes the Mind Stone. And then next turn we can Tsabo's Web. Duress. So we probably lose the Fling here, and that stops us from being able to combo. Tsabo's Web doesn't look like it's going to be doing a great amount of things. But having this Mind Stone in play means we can cast a Tsabo's Web without losing a counter from our Gemstone Mine. So we're going to need to string together quite a lot of mana in total for this game. Yeah, they decided to take the Fling. We're going to take a little bit of damage off this Festering Goblin. Okay, to us, City of Brass. I'm going to deploy this Tsabo's Web first. Get our card draw, see if anything interesting pops up, different lands or whatever. Another Fling. That's certainly interesting. I don't want to burn a counter of this Gemstone Mine on a defense grid. Our opponent's deck is not really going to be able to interact with these. So we need 8 mana to combo here. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we are quite a ways off. We need our opponent to not apply additional pressure to us. There's an argument that we can deploy the Devourer and then try and wait a turn cycle. But then we do expose ourselves to removal. Now it won't get hit by some removal because it is an artifact. And it's not going to get hit by Smother either. So maybe this is okay, but if they find a way of killing their own Festering Goblin with a Smother, then they can just minus this. I guess we can try and put a counter on it. As long as we don't hit Phyrexian Devourer, we'll be okay. So maybe that's what we're going to be thinking about doing here. What was our opponent up to? Is this like a 3-drop? Rotlung Reanimate. Okay, so we're on zombies of some description. And this is a weird selection of combo of creatures to see. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think we're going to play the Devourer and see if they can kill it or not. Because we have a second one, I think this is reasonable to do. We don't know if our opponent's going to be running Port or Wastelands. This plays around that. Obviously, Fling is instant, so the Port's not so good. But the Wasteland can certainly get us. Volrath Stronghold. We don't care about that one. A lot of removal spells aren't going to hit this. Like, if our opponent was playing a white deck, I wouldn't be doing this at all. But if our opponent's playing a black deck, I think we can dodge a lot of removal with this. Contamination. Yeah, that's kind of a pain, isn't it? Are we going to be going to the backup plan of beating down with our Devourer? So our lands only produce black. I'm going to exile a card with this Devourer, I think. Okay, City of Traitors. We're going to do another one. An Impulse. So this gives us a 3-power guy. So we can block and kill the Festering Goblin. That gives them fewer things to bring back with this Contamination. Alright. Let's do this. So I'm going to minus this. That's going to make it into a 1-1. Effectively. It was going to be a 2-2 with 1 damage placed on it. So the Contamination is definitely going to be awkward for us. I think we are cantripping away here. See, look, the mana we got off this is only black because of the Contamination. So how many hits do we have that will make this over 7? We have... Let's check the list. So the only thing that will make this too big will be if we hit one of our 2 Devourers. So I'm going to try and make it bigger and not hit one of our 2 Devourers. An Ancient Tomb. A Tsabo's Web. Alright, I'm happy to beat our opponent down for 5 a turn. We can also just draw Altar of Dementia, and that will allow us to win even through the Contamination. So it's not like a hard lock. Importantly, the way this is worded, it doesn't mean lands only tap for black. It means if it's tapped for mana, it produces black. So if we lose a counter of the Gemstone Mine, is the only way we can make mana from it. But then it still goes away due to Gemstone Mine's ability, even though it's only making us black mana. Weird game already. Withered Wretch. Okay. Does our opponent have access to a Funeral Charm here? Tinker. Would like to get that going, but it's not a thing we can do right now. We could draw a card off this Mind Stone, but then the Gemstone Mine is going to die soon. Am I attacking with this Devourer? If they have Funeral Charm, they can -1 this. Actually, if they have Funeral Charm, this dies anyway, because Funeral Charm is +2, -1, if I remember rightly. So our creature would die to state-based effects. So I believe that we're supposed to attack here, because this is already dead to the thing that we would be maybe trying to play around. Sure, we'll just chunk our opponent for 5. If at any point they can't pay for Contamination, we immediately fling them and they die. I got rid of their zombie token. A Rotlung Reanimator. So this Cleric dying will give them a zombie. So I should get him for 2 here. Impulse, we can't cast that. We're just attacking with the Devourer. The backup plan. So every piece of material removed from our opponent's board means they can hold the Contamination lock for a short amount of time. Alright, they've decided not to block with this. So they're losing Oh, they've done this wrong, I think. So this is a zombie cleric, but so is this. If they let this one go first, they can sustain their contamination a lot longer, because this will give them a zombie, then this dies and gives them a zombie. Rotlung Reanimator. Yeah, so they could have had 2 Rotlung Reanimators here, and that would have been way better. Okay. At some point, we might have to turtle up and just try and wait until we draw Altar of Dementia. But for now, I think we're just sending in the clowns. Clearing the material. They have to block here. So they should be blocking with the Rotlung Reanimator. Actually, is that true? No, they should block with this zombie, right? And then they sack this. Yeah, I don't like the way our opponent's been approaching their contamination lock here. We could also draw a Lotus Petal and just win the game immediately. So there is an argument to maybe crack the Mind Stone looking for that. Yeah, so if they just sacked this first time around, when this died, they would have got 2 zombies. A Withered Wretch. Yep. They're going to continue to peck us away. Sure, they're coming in for 4. But their clock is getting cut in half, like, pretty much every turn here. An Altar of Dementia, you say. Gem Palm Polluter. This is going to put us to, what, 3 life? That's fine by me. So now we can just execute the combo here. So we do this. The trigger goes on the stack now because it's bigger, but we activate in response. We keep activating it in response. Our opponent's got 45 cards in their library. Our opponent basically doesn't really get a chance to interact once these 2 pieces are in play. Right, our opponent's scooping up because they know what's about to happen. Okay, we got the game 1. The contamination lock, not so great against us. So Pyroclasm seems real good here. We don't want any blue blasts or red blasts. Do we want any of these effects? Hoodwink or Rushing River. Do we think our opponent's going to have something that we need to deal with? The answer to that is yes, because they're probably running Engineered Plague. If they put Engineered Plague on Phyrexian or Construct, this dies to state-based effects before we can ever put any counters on it. So we need to respect that and board in some number of these things. So this is potentially 7 cards that we want to bring in. Now, Defense Grid, we don't need this. That can go. The Tsabo's Web didn't seem to have the most targets here. So I think I'm okay getting rid of some Tsabo's Webs. Obviously, we need to keep an amount for tinkering, but I think we still have enough artifacts here that will be fine. We just don't want to lose to... Maybe we don't need 2 rushing... We don't need 3 rushing rivers. Although, black decks always have so many of these Engineer Plague, and if we just have a thing that lets us bounce 2 of them, that's going to be really useful. Alright, we're going to go in like this and see how we fare. If they show us a bunch of Rishadan ports, then things are going to change a little bit. But they've got Volrath Stronghold as one of their colourless lands, so whether or not they're going to have access to more stuff in their mana base to mess with us is hard to say. Okay, we got a combo piece here. A little bit of protection for some stuff. A little bit of ramp. I think this is fine. We're going to try it and see how it feels. Rushing River, not great at dealing with contamination, but that's not what we're bringing it in for. So what they really need to assemble is contamination plus Engineered Plague, and then we're in trouble. But we do have the Pyroclasms that can just swipe our opponent's board, pick it up, put it in the bin, and then they're not going to be able to keep their contamination lock. Now we will need to have something like a Lotus Petal to do that, but using our Lotus Petal for that is a perfectly worthy cause rather than just bouncing something. Alright, they have a Mistress Factory, so I don't think they're going to have Wastelands. They've got Mistress Factory and Volrath Stronghold. I will deploy this Mind Stone, which gives us the ability... Actually, we should probably deploy the Altar of Dementia, because if our opponent runs a Duress, taking out one of our win conditions, especially our colourless win condition, is a problem. Duress. There we go. So we perfectly played around the thing that our opponent just did. So there is an argument to playing the Mind Stone so that we can double spell on turn 2, but that's not what's important here. What's important is making sure our combo pieces hit the table and stay there. Black deck's pretty bad at getting rid of artifacts. They need to use Powder Keg, Nev's Disc, or Gate to Phyrexia, I think is legal, but no one ever plays that because it's bad. Okay, so Mind Stone. And then Shivan Reef. We can play this other Mind Stone. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we have the kill next turn. Not bad going. I think the mana rocks here are really good. I wouldn't necessarily mind having some more. Volrath Stronghold. Are you going to tap out for something here? Is it going to be an E-Plague? Cabal Therapy. What are you going to name here? Are they going to name the Devourer? I don't know that we drew it, but they should maybe name it because it's the scariest thing that we could do. They named Rushing River. Okay, but we have the kill in hand. Do they have a creature they can play? Well, they can activate the factory, right? So they activate the factory, attack us for 2, and then they will flash back their therapy. That's pretty good. But then all we need to do is find a Tinker or another Devourer. So we've got, what, 7 hits? And then obviously we can start doing things like Impulse to try and find more stuff. Okay. I'll play the land they know about. I will sacrifice 1 Mind Stone here. Just see if we can get a Tinker and win the game this turn. Okay, we'll just pass over. Because we want to make sure we still have enough mana to play a Devourer if we draw one next turn. Because the longer it stays in our hand being unable to cast, the more chance there is our opponent can strip it with some hand disruption. A Lotus Petal, okay. So this makes finding Tinker... I guess Tinker's still fine because we have a Lotus Petal, right? So I guess this is worth drawing a card with. Alright, we just failed on that front. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 with the City of Brass. Oh, we should play out this Lotus Petal, actually. That was a mistake. Because now this is exposed to hand disruption. So this could be our Tinker material and it might not work. Altar of Dementia. So this is going to be some of our Tinker material. I think we'll play out this Gemstone Mine. We just don't want to take damage. Just give ourselves the most amount of draw steps to find what we're looking for. Again, we will play out this Lotus Petal so our opponent can't duress it out of our hand. It's unlikely they're going to be able to blow up loads of artifacts. Just some little festering goblins. The one downside of this is the target creature has to get targeted. So if you have your own creatures, it has to target them. I will play out this Lotus Petal for the same reasons as before. And I will play out City of Brass. It does give our opponent perfect information, but just having more mana so that we can maybe play like a Mind Stone and crack it and get deeper into our deck makes a lot of sense here. So we've got a bunch of good draws here, and we've got 4 turns to find those draws. Obviously, every time we tap the City of Brass, we're reducing the time it takes for our opponent to kill us, but we don't really need to tap the City of Brass until we're winning the game. Phyrexian Devourer. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here's the Devourer. Goodbye to your library. We got the GGs in chat. Yep, combo deck's generally going to be pretty good unless our opponent can string together enough disruption. Let's go to round 2. Okay, we kind of have a combo piece here. This can be either combo piece as well. So we're going to be keeping this one. Imagine how much better this hand would be if this City of Traitors was an Ancient Tomb or this Shivan Reef was a Croesus's Catacomb. So we could just do the turn 1 defense grid. So I think we are doing... I think it's Crystal Vein. I think we want to preserve our Shivan Reef in case our opponent has a wasteland so that we're not going to be cut off of blue and we need to cast these blue spells. Let's see what flavour of deck our opponent is. Island. Okay, double defense grid. Nice place to be. Sleight of Hand. It's interesting art. Is that Eldraine? I think the little book one. Not seen that one before. Alright, another Shivan Reef. Let's see if our opponent has a Daze. So we could preemptively crack the Crystal Vein to make sure that this doesn't get dazed. But we have a second one. Right, there is the Daze. And then we just get to do the same thing next turn with the defense grid, playing around a Daze. And then we can start impulsing and all that sort of jazz. So I don't know which flavour of blue deck our opponent is. Could be Dreadnought. That's quite a likely one. That deck is very popular and very strong. Okay, let's get this defense grid in. Alright, that just resolved. So that's going to make our life so much easier. Ooh. Are we playing 3 colours? Are we playing just 2 colours? And this is just for things like Sylvan Library and they're just in green. I think if they get a red here... Okay, so they're probably just blue-green. Werebear. Okay, so they're going to be some sort of thresholdy style deck. That's fine. I think we should be able to outclock our opponent here. So we have this City of Traitors. How much mana do we have here? Do we have the win? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mana. So this is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we're a little bit shy, actually. So we want to go Tsabo's Web here. Just get a card. And then I will cast this Impulse. These are all pretty good. If we take the second Tinker, I'm just trying to think, how can this possibly go wrong for us? I think we take the second Tinker. So the reason for taking the second Tinker is these can be either combo piece. So if suddenly they expose like a black mana source that we're not expecting and duress us, then we don't have to worry that much. They could naturalize this and turn on some other bits and pieces. Alright, so now even though they play a land, they're not going to have 3 mana to pay through defense grid. So we should have a deterministic win, unless our opponent's playing Gaia's Blessing. Does this deck play Gaia's Blessing? I don't think this deck does. It's certainly within the wheelhouse of cards that could be in their deck, but generally speaking, I don't think it is. Also, I love the Nimble Mongoose. What a great card. They don't make them like this anymore. Would like to draw a Fling here. That would be the ideal draw. So we play the Altar of Dementia. Then I guess we are doing Ancient Tomb here. We will cast this Tinker. Sacrifice this Tsabo's Web. Go and get the Devourer. And I think we just send it here. If they've got the Blessing, then it's going to suck for us. But our opponent's going to have enough beatdown that I think we just need to send it here. Alright, they're scooping it up, which means they don't have the Gaia's Blessing. That's good information for us to have. Okay, now they might have them in the sideboard. Oh, our opponent has just decided that they are done with us. Okay, I guess we'll go to another round. This is the hand that has neither of our combo pieces and no way of digging for them. I don't think we can keep a hand that looks like this. This has one of our combo pieces, times 2, I guess, and then we're just going to be trying to find the Devourer. This can also be tinkered, so I think this is an okay keep. And we're probably going to put back, I think it's one of the cities, just in case our life tail is going to be under pressure. Our opponent is mulliganed quite aggressively, so they might be doing something quite broken, like Reanimator, that can just like come out of nowhere and smash us up. Let's find out. Swamp, okay. We could be in Reanimator territory here. Dark Ritual. Is this just going to be a hippie? Phyrexian Arena. Okay, I'm not really a fan of this play as a general turn 1 play, because what I'm scared of when somebody casts a Dark Ritual when I'm playing Premodern is they put a bunch of pressure that we can't beat. This isn't pressure. This is going to take 3 turns to recoup the cards to start gaining card advantage. So, yeah, not too worried about that. So we have a choice here of playing out the Altar of Dementia off of our City of Traitors so that we definitely have it in. It will cost us a City of Traitors, but it will mean that this doesn't get discarded, which is the main way our opponent's going to interact with what we're doing. Now, they can take the Fling, but then we'll just still have this in play. I think I'm actually going to play the City of Traitors out and deploy this Altar of Dementia. I think it's so important to make sure our opponent doesn't discard this out of our hand, that this is worth giving up the City of Traitors for. Especially since we have a bunch of lands. If we didn't have a lot of lands in hand, then maybe we do something differently. But if we don't have a lot of lands in hand, we're going to have more spells and be able to play this game differently anyway. So I think given the amount of lands we have, just getting the thing in a place where they can't necessarily interact with it is where we want to be. But now our opponent exposes red mana, which can maybe blow up our artifact. Tsabo's Web. I would like to draw a bonus card here. Imagine if one of these Shivan Reefs or Gemstone Mine or City of Brass was a Croesus' Catacombs. I'd feel so good about now. Maybe I'm banging that point a little bit too much, but I do really like that card. Okay, so play this out so it can't be discarded. And then, are we playing out one of these lands? Or are we just holding? So, if we draw Tinker next turn, we can still cast it, even if we play one of these lands out. So I think I'm just going to play out a Shivan Reef. So our opponent probably in some sort of like machine head-ish ballpark, so they're going to be doing like Hand Disruption, and then creatures like Hypnotic Spectre, possibly Withered Wretch, and Blazing Spectre. They might also have the combo of the, what's it called? You Insidious Dreams to set it up, and you have Draco, and then you have a spell, Erratic Explosion, where you have the Draco on top of your library for 16, and then you Erratic Explosion knowing it's on top, so that you deal your opponent a whole bunch of damage. That's pretty cool. Alright, Mind Stone. Let's just get that into play. We're just in this zone where we're waiting for something to happen on our side of the board. But our opponent isn't really pressuring us, but I imagine this turn. They're drawing 3 cards. They should be able to find something to pressure us with. But we already have the pieces in play that we don't really care if they start messing with our hand at this point. This is going to be a game of, do we draw the combo piece before our opponent clocks us? Many Phyrexian arenas. I don't think our opponent really is a fan of having this many arenas. I think they would rather have had some action. I think we just play the land that doesn't hurt us. We could, if we crack this Mind Stone and we draw Devourer, we have 1 mana, 2 mana, 3 mana, 4 mana. So cracking this Mind Stone is not good for us, because if we draw the Devourer, our opponent can just discard it. If we draw the Tinker, we just win. But I don't think we need to do that yet because we're not under pressure. So I'm going to play out this Gemstone Mine and pass it over. Many, many arenas. So we can crack this Mine Stone in our opponent's end step if we want to. And that way, if we find the Devourer, we're good. If we find the Tinker, we're good. Buried Alive. Okay, are we getting killed this turn? Are they going to Shallow Grave out some big monster? I guess it's unlikely they can kill us this turn. Okay, this is the Bladewing deck. This is interesting. Okay. I saw this on Neon Mushroom's channel, which is a channel that you 100% should watch if you like pre-modern content. Makes some wonderful stuff. I saw this deck on there. So, yeah, it's kind of like a reanimated deck that's doing something a little bit different. So instead of trying to make like one bigger chroma, it's trying to go a little bit wider by doing like Buried Alive stuff and having your one reanimation spell getting you 3 decent creatures instead of one really good creature in a chroma, because Swords to Plowshares is everywhere and you don't just want to get absolutely bodied by it. So this is going to hit us for a bunch. So this is 6, and then next turn 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So we're very close to being dead here. So I think we're going to fire up this Mind Stone. And so we do still have enough mana. Right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, so we still can cast the Phyrexian Devourer if we draw it. There is a Fling. That's not the one we wanted. And we found the Tinker at the last moment. Excellent news. So this is 2 and a blue. I will tinker away this Tsabo's Web. Go and get ourselves a Phyrexian Devourer. And then we'll start making it large. We can mill them out, or we can fling at them. Alright, we got the GG in chat there. And that is game 1. Let's go to the sideboard. So, we don't have great tools for this matchup, to be honest. So, none of this stuff really matters. It's a case of how much of this stuff do we want. So, they're a black deck. They probably have the Engineered Plague. So, I think we're going to want these things. They're also going to have ways of blowing up artifacts in red. So, maybe we want some blue blasts. I think this is the most important thing to include. And I think we probably are just getting rid of defense grids here. And then we have to decide if we want to deal with any of their artifact destruction stuff. But what were they having? Probably like Meltdown or Overload are probably the 2 most common things. I think we can beat either of those relatively well. All right, we're going to try like this, and then we can maybe change things around later on. Now, we do have a game 3 where we can sort of reappraise the situation. This opener doesn't have any of our combo pieces. It has pretty stable mana, but I don't think we can do that when our opponent's trying to put some decent pressure on us. So let's mulligan this. This does have the double combo piece and just leaves us looking for the answer in the... Sorry, not the answer. The Phyrexian Devourer as our way of winning the game. So what are we binning off here? I think we're keeping our manas. Do you want this Mind Stone? I think we do, because that's going to enable Tinker. Do we want to keep Fling? I think we need to keep Fling and Altar of Dementia in case we get hit by a discard spell. So I think we need to keep all 4 of these, which means we actually probably have to get rid of a land, which is a little bit spooky here. We could just get rid of this Lotus Petal and just have a little bit more stable mana. All right, I'm going to try it like this. If we get Duress on turn 1, we might have to City of Traitors out our Altar of Dementia, which will really suck in the face of an Overload or something from our opponent. But I don't know how much red mana they have. They might just be mono black with just some red sources in case they get to that stage of the game. They took the Altar of Dementia. So if they'd have taken the Fling, then we would have probably had to play out the Altar of Dementia. But now it doesn't really matter what we're doing here. So we can just play out this Shivan Reef. I would not like our Mind Stone to be discarded, but I think they would take the Fling anyway. The Fling also gets around Overload, if that's what our opponent's got. Or basically any sort of instant speed destruction. Okay, I think we're going to get rid of a City of Traitors. It's not really a thing we want multiple of here. It's good for a burst turn to have multiple, but that's about it. I will play out this Gemstone Mine. Here comes the Mind Stone. And we'll pass it over. Another Rats. I think we say goodbye to the Mind Stone. So if they've got Cabal Therapy here, they know that we've got a Fling in hand, so they can strip that as well. They also know, they actually know this City of Traitors as well, so they can just have full knowledge of what we're doing. I love Ravenous Rats. This was probably the card that, to me, when I started playing Premodern, I was like, why are people running this card? It looks terrible. And then as soon as I started playing, I was like, oh, okay, I get it. I think I'm going to Impulse and then see where we go from there. Altar of Dementia is pretty good here. I will take that. Play out this city and then deploy the altar. So we have multiple things to tinker away. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we don't have quite enough mana to cast the Devourer. But Tinker is obviously still a banger. So they do have basic mountain. I imagine that this is probably the only basic mounting in their deck. Okay, Buried Alive. So they're going to go and get a bunch of dudes. And then they're going to bring them back. Yep, so it's the classic trifecta of Thrall, Bladewing the Risen, and Rorik's Bladewing. Doubling up on Bladewing. Technically that's a flavor fail because the Bladewing the Risen is the zombie version of the Rorik's. But they didn't have the reanimation spell right there, so we've still got a bit of time. But obviously the clock can change a lot. How much do I like this Tangle Wire? I like it enough to play it. It's going to be pretty one-sided because we can tap our Altar of Dementia. And we can tap the Tangle Wire itself, so we're only going to have to tap down one thing. Also, I love Tangle Wire. This is just such a sweet card. So hopefully this stops our opponent from deploying anything else to the board or from damaging us. So that gives us more time one way or the other. Yep, so they only get black available this turn unless they have a land in hand and they can maybe play something else. But they can still, you know, animate dead something. Which I imagine is the reanimation spell they had if they didn't have a reanimation spell last time. Yep, so in comes the dragons. So this is going to deal us 6 damage. And then next turn, they can deal us a whole bunch more. So we are dead next turn. So we have 1 turn to hit. So we basically have to find a tinker this turn or we lose. I think that's where we're at. If we take 6 this turn, they've got plenty to kill us with next turn. So we put the fading on top. So we put the tap on the bottom here. So we remove a counter. And then we resolve the tap ability. So we tap this and this because that doesn't make a difference. And then we have to tap one of these. I think we end up tapping Gemstone Mine here, because if we draw a land, we can crack the Mine Stone and have the ability to tinker still. We didn't draw that. If we make our opponent tap 7 permanents, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, this still kills us. If we crack this, it's not going to get us anywhere. I think we're just dead here. We're just going to take one little look and see if there's anything interesting on top of our deck. I don't think there is here. Hoodwink. Return to an artifact, enchantment, or land to its owner's hands. This is basically non-creature. So we can bounce the animate dead. This goes away. We take 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So we're still dead, and I respect our opponent enough to know that they're just going to tap their lands down and beat us down. Okay. So a little bit awkward. Didn't really feel like we needed the blue blast. Now, we can obviously hit their dragons with the blue blast, and that slows them down a bunch. Maybe that's something worth considering. But Rushing River can bounce a dragon, which is basically the same thing, but it also covers us in the face of Engineered Plague. So I think I like how we've boarded. We have half of our combo. We have a little bit of interaction. We have a bit of slowing the game down. And we have mana that we can play. I think I'm going to keep this. I don't feel this is very strong, but I also think it's keepable in the matchup. So I guess we lead off on the city. And then we're probably going for a turn 3 Tangle Wire. Just slow them down a bit. Hopefully we're not going to get bodied by too many things here. Okay, Dark Ritual. So if they play a Phyrexian Arena, I don't really mind about that. But if they do something like this, where they're going to be threatening a huge amount of pressure on turn 2, I don't like that very much. Do we need to play City of Traitors? Gemstone Mine. I think we might have to play City of Traitors, because if they bring these back, we're in a lot of trouble already. So I think we're just going to Tangle Wire straight away and just buy ourselves time. I think our opponent is probably going to have this game, though. They've got a lot of pressure that they're threatening, and we're just kind of ways away from our combo. Now, things can change quite dramatically quite quickly as well. Tinker gets us where we need to go. If our opponent goes land, reanimate, that's obviously terrible news for us. If they go land, Dark Ritual, and animate dead, that's bad. We haven't seen actual factual reanimate yet, so maybe we're okay. Duress. Are we losing the river or the fling? Okay, so we're going to lose all of our permanents here unless we want a Rushing River, which we don't. So we tap all these down for a turn. It does still hurt us for the City of Brass. Not ideal. Tangle Wire. I don't really like losing the City of Traitors here, but I think we have to do that. Let's play this Gemstone Mine, because then it won't get tapped down and lose us life. So our opponent's not going to have any lands this turn either. And then we can just settle into Tangle Wire gaming for a bit longer, and maybe our opponent will not be able to deploy anything, and then we'll eventually have enough land drops and just draw a Tinker and win the game. That's kind of what we're going for here. So put the Fading on the top. So we'll lose this and the Gemstone Mine for a turn. That way we don't take damage. A Phyrexian Devourer. That's not a bad one. I think we play out the Gemstone Mine here. So our opponent's going to tap down 2 of their lands. If they have another land, they might be able to animate dead on the Blade Wing the Risen, and then I think we are just in the dirt and not going to win this game. We are not in a mana situation that's going to really help us out here either. We don't have enough to be deploying this Devourer. If this was a Tinker, then we'd be a bit closer, I think. Don't animate dead me. Don't do it. They've done it. Okay. We are in trouble. So this is a lot of pressure. We don't have to tap anything to the Tangle Wire, it will just tap itself. We don't have enough mana to really do anything though. We can bounce one of their guys, so we can bounce this and that's going to slow the clock down. That's not going to feel amazing for us. An Ancient Tomb, does that change anything? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mana. So we can Rushing River, we can bounce a couple of things, and then what? We don't get to play 2 spells though. So we can bounce this and this by sacrificing a land. That's a huge cost here though. I think we have to Rushing River. What land are we sacrificing is the question. So I think we go blue, blue, and this. And then if we bounce these 2, this is still a 3-3. Okay, so we bounce this and this. I think we have to sacrifice a Suit of Brass. I don't think we're going to get enough life to leverage this one. Okay. It's a little tough. So they're going to tap down one of their lands and then beat us for 3. So this is a 4-turn clock, but it's probably a 3-turn clock, depending on how much life we're taking from our lands. So I've made comments before about how I don't like Dark Ritual in like the fairer decks. Our opponent's deck is not a fair deck. They're trying to bury it alive. So I really like Dark Ritual in these sorts of strategies in the format. Zombie Infestation. Yep. How many cards you got? Enough to make 2 zombies. They hit us for 3. That puts us to 8. They make 2 zombies. That's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So they don't have lethal. Yeah, they won't have lethal next turn. Now, if they have any sort of reanimation spell, then we can just enjoy being dead, I guess. Our opponent's deck is really sweet, though. So if we tap the City of Brass, we die. That's not great for us. Tapping down 4 of their permanents doesn't feel very useful either. So the way Fading works is if you can't remove a counter, then it goes away. What are we doing here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is going to put us to what life total? So 8, 7, 6, 5. So we block here, we take 2. We're still in the game. All right. It gives us a top deck out to win the game here. Unless we exile a card and the card we exile is Phyrexian Devourer, then we just lose. We won't have this Tangle Wire to sacrifice to a Tinker, so Tinker is not a live draw. We need to hit Fling or the Altar. Those are our outs here. We're going to be at 1 life. Animate dead. We are just super dead here, because this brings back the Rorik's Blade Wing, and then they just smush our face horribly. Yep. That'll do. Alright, we did not manage to win that game. That felt really tough with the pressure they could apply to us. Maybe we need something like Ensnaring Bridge as an option. Uncertain. Let's go to round 4. Okay, I think this opener is reasonable. I'm going to keep this. I don't think we're rushing out this Mind Stone or anything. I don't think it's worth using our Petal when we have a 6-drop we're trying to cast. So we're a little bit exposed to some hand disruption. But not every deck is playing hand disruption. Or maybe every deck is playing hand disruption today. Alright, Dark Ritual. Mesmeric Fiend. Goodbye, Phyrexian Devourer. So Mesmeric Fiend. This probably means our opponent is running some sort of like rock style deck. You don't see this in mono black decks that often. They tend to play more towards the like Ravenous Rats, Cabal Therapy style thing. Okay, maybe it is mono black though, and this is just like a nice little tool. They didn't fully maximize their Dark Ritual, which is nice for us. We drew the thing they took, which is about as perfect as it gets. I will deploy this Mind Stone. So the reason we left the Lotus Petal in hand is if our opponent made a mistake to duress this, and also we didn't know what our opponent was playing, so we didn't know if we wanted to keep this in hand and hide it, or just deploy it to dodge hand disruption. But now we know we can deploy it. So how much mana have we got here? 4. So a Soul Land gets us Devourer, which we've already discussed is pretty good against black removal as a general rule. Bad Moon. Yep. We're getting bashed for 5 here, so the clock is certainly approaching. If we don't draw anything useful, we will play out this defense grid just to have a thing that we can tinker away with. Tsabo's Web. Oh, that's a great draw here. Eat it, Mistress Factory. That saves us quite a bit of damage here. Let's see what we draw and before we make our land drop. A Fling. Okay, so we are pretty darn close. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So one more mana lets us get the Devourer. In this particular matchup, I think we're more likely to have our Devourer taken out of our hand than we are to have it killed. Now, if we play it out and our opponent Diabolic Edict us, then we're going to feel pretty bad about that. This gives us the ability to cast it right now. I think it is worth casting. They also don't have the mana for Diabolic Edict. And we are under the gun here, so we do need to make a decision. And the decision I've made is jam our massive creature. I hope they don't have land Diabolic Edict. They're not going to have Innocent Blood, so it basically has to be Diabolic Edict here. Right, they're just attacking with the Dauthi Slayer. And then we get to go to our turn. And we get to do the Fling thing. So let's start doing the Devourer thing. So we've got this trigger just sat on the stack here, and we're just going over the top of the trigger. So the way state-based abilities trigger is they look to see if that state has been achieved and then put it on the stack. If it's already on the stack, it won't put it on the stack again. It's the same as how Dark Depths works. So we're not making another instance of this trigger. Alright, 21 is enough for me. Fling this guy. 21 to the dome. They can't cast any spells, so I was not worried about any random sudden life gain. Okay, we got game 1. So, as we've discussed, against black decks, I think you want to have access to the bounce spells, so they can't get the Engineered Plague in. I don't think we want anything else, because this is... I guess Pyroclasm is pretty good, actually. Maybe we want the Pyroclasms. Tsabo's Web, actively useful here, though. Boarding in 7 cards into our combo deck is a lot. I'm not convinced we actually want these Tangle Wires that much here. The reason being is our opponent's going to commit stuff to the board, so they're probably going to have enough permanents so they can get damage in underneath the Tangle Wire. So I'm not actually in love with the Tangle Wire here, and that gives us quite a clean cut of 7 for 7. And most of the time, this Pyroclasm is going to do way more than a Tangle Wire. This will maybe delay our opponent, but we're not caring about their mana, we're caring about their pressure in this matchup, so this just works out better. Right, we have an answer for the thing we're scared about in the Engineered Plague. We have one of our combo pieces. We have something that shuts down their Mistress Factory, which is a really good threat that they have access to. We have a way of digging. This seems like a pretty good keep to me. We've also got a Soul Land, which is always nice. Now, double City of Brass against an aggro matchup. Not ideal. But it is what it is. All right, we have a Dark Ritual popping off here. How much pressure? Hypnotic Spectre. Yeah, that card's obviously going to be pretty irritating for us. So, we have an option here of playing out the Altar of Dementia at the cost of a Lotus Petal, so that it can't possibly get removed. I think that is correct to do here. Because that way we just have one of our combo pieces in play. Our opponent's deck is not going to be able to answer this. Powder Keg is probably not what they're playing in their aggressive black deck, because they're not going to want to blow up their own guys. So, this gives us a guaranteed combo piece, and then we have a redraw off of the Tsabo's Web, and we have an Impulse that can dig. I'd like to discard maybe the Hoodwink. Okay, we discarded the Hoodwink. Cool. Now if they play the Engineered Plague here, then I'm not going to be happy with losing the Hoodwink. Alright, we're probably losing a decent chunk of our hand. They're going to name Phyrexian Devourer here, or Tinker. They named Tinker, yeah. I think that's the smart name there. Are they going to sacrifice their Spectre to take our Impulse, though? No. I think it's more important to have the pressure, and this card is pretty good. So I think we are on the impulse line rather than the Tsabo's web line. This way we can react to what our opponent does. So there is an argument here. Are we supposed to impulse first? So if we impulse first and we discard the thing, then we have less hits in our deck. So we're supposed to let this hit and then we impulse. Don't hit my impulse. Okay, the Tsabo's web. Okay, that's fine. They don't have a Mishra's Factory, so it's not that important. All right, there's a Doughty Slayer. So now we can impulse. Fling, Tinker. Tinker is probably the best option here. I was kind of hoping for a Pyroclasm, to be honest. Alright, deck. Mind Stone. This puts us 1 mana away from where we need to be. So... Actually, no, then we just have it, right? Because Mind Stone taps for mana. What am I talking about? Yeah, we just have the kill here. Alright, maths. It's not the easiest thing in the world to do basic maths, but here we are. Tinker, goodbye Mind Stone. Hello, Devourer. We got the GGs in chat. So we're just going to make this really big. And then we're going to throw at our opponent. Well, actually, we're going to mill their library. This is a turn 3 kill through Hypnotic Spectre, Cabal Therapy. And then we'll sack this Devourer and bin them off. And they don't have anything that matters here. So what they're going to do is they're going to die to their draw trigger in their draw step. All right. 4 rounds down and we are 3-1. So we're going to go into the 5th round here. All right, we're into round 5. Yeah. It's a little bit slower than I would like, but we've got some redraws. Maybe we can find some mana off them. Seems okay. There is a basic island. So we're going to need to overcome some counter spells this game. So, right, so here's our Lotus Petal. Let's pass it over. Shivan Reef, cool. Here is a City of Brass. I think we're going to be impulsing in our opponent's end step, or if they tap out. Accumulated knowledge. I would like to respond with an impulse while you are tapped out there. This kind of tells our opponent that we are a combo deck. I would like this Ancient Tomb. Mana is kind of what we need right now. I'd like our opponent to play some man lands, please. So this could be like counterburn. I've seen a few blue-red Dreadnought builds online lately. Alright, they played a man land. That was nice of them. Let's play this Ancient Tomb. Let's deploy a Tsabo's Web. Our Life Total is an important resource in this game. Our opponent's probably going to be trying to burn us down with a bunch of stuff. Annul. The old main deck Annul, you say. Let's have another Tsabo's Web, please. We've got the mana to pay around 4 spike. Alright, we're just in. Beautiful. And we'll play out this Lotus Petal. And pass. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we're 1 mana away from doing it all. But we need to worry about our opponent's ability to interact with us. So we need them to tap out. But their deck is basically designed to not tap out. So maybe we're just going to have to sit here for a while until we find a defense grid. Our opponent not making land drops is good for us, but that means they got just a bunch of action in hand. So we're just going to keep playing lands out for now. If we draw another Tinker, we can try and tinker up a defense grid. Latnam's Legacy. So shuffling a card from their hand, and then they get to draw 2 cards at the beginning of the next turn's upkeep. Cool card. Right, they found another land. A little spread of mismatched islands there. An Impulse. When do we cast this Impulse is the next question. I think we cast it now in case we draw a defense grid. A Mind Stone, a Tangle Wire. Tangle Wire is so good here. Alright, here comes a Tangle Wire. How do you like them apples, opponent? This is going to tap you out completely. If they have a land, they can make an annul here. But they're probably going to need to... Okay, it's just a regular counterspell. Sure. So that's just getting counterspells out of our opponent's hand. Making it slightly more likely that we can resolve our combo. But we just can't send it into what our opponent's showing. We're not under any pressure. We're just going to have to play draw go for a little bit. Fling. Okay, this is interesting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 mana. So we can 6 this and then Fling. But I don't particularly like that. We could just Tinker here. Let's get rid of this Lotus Petal. I think our opponent will counterspell this. Yeah, Okay, but at least they're not Factal Fictioning. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 1 mana shy of throwing down the Devourer 2, but we can't do it into this mana. We just need to try and stop our opponent from having a big gas up turn with a Factal Fiction. Incinerate going to the dome. Yep. A Mishra's Factory. They get 1 attack with it. 4 cards in hand. Like, at some point we might just have to go for it. A Lotus Petal. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 mana. I don't think we need to go for it right now, but it does open up our opponent to have a really nice Factal Fiction turn. Yep, here it is. So, what do we care about here? I don't want them drawing this Factal Fiction. Prophetic Bolt is kind of slow. Do we want to give them all the burn, though? We don't care about Fairy Conclave. It doesn't really matter where it goes. This does give them a little bit of card draw. So maybe split up these so they have a little bit of burn or a little bit of dig. We could also just put the Prophetic Bolt with the Factal Fiction, but they'll probably just take this, right? Factal Fiction is the best thing they have going on. No, I think it's the Incinerate goes with the fact. We don't want to give them loads of dig for counter spells. I think they take the Factal Fiction here. No, they decided to go for the other pile. Interesting. Like, going for the 3 piles, you know, not a bad thing to do. It's more cards, but one of those cards doesn't do anything because it's just a land that comes into play tapped. Latinam's Legacy isn't the best draw effect. It's not instant speed. Like, you don't get the draws immediately. You have to wait till the next upkeep. So you can't dig immediately for an answer to something. So we know they've got a Prophetic Bolt. They can fire it off now. That puts us to 5 lives. So we're dead to Bolt. So I think we might have to go here. Yeah, I think we're going to lose this one. Yeah, I think they're just going to counter this and then we're done. Yeah, another counter spell. Okay. But this means they're not firing their Prophetic Bolt, so maybe we get another turn where we can draw a Tinker or a Devourer. So they're going to Latinams here. Get another card. This is very much going to be a let's board in our Pyroblast sort of game. Mishra's Factory. Cool. Tsabo's Web's doing some heavy lifting here. What are they tapping out for? I guess they're not fully tapping out. No, Navinrol's Disc. Yeah, that's pretty good. So they're leaving up counterspell mana. We can't really do much about that. We did draw a Tinker. Like, it's now or never, isn't it really? So let's go for a Tinker here. Do you have the counterspell? Or have we wiggled our way through? Oh, they didn't have the counterspell. Nice. Let's start devouring them. They could have a counterspell for our Fling. They could have a mana leak here, but we can pay for mana leak. Just. So by playing out the disc, it kind of just told us they didn't necessarily have the immediate answer. Right, so now let's Fling, target our opponent. So this is red and 1 here. Sacrifice this. Can I dome you for 24? If they've got another counterspell and they were just saving it for the Fling, then fair enough. Is it the 4th counterspell? Prohibit. Yep, that explains why I didn't do it. So now we are pretty much toast. Prohibit is a pretty good spell that I think doesn't see quite enough play. A lot of people try and jam in more counter spells, which don't always work out if your mana base is multiple colours. Tinker. No. Nothing doing here. I think we are in a little bit of trouble here, because I don't need to do anything with this Nev's Disc either. We need to draw Fling. That's the only way that we can get out of here. Alright, they're popping this. So that's okay for now. So now we need 2 draw steps. We know our opponent can just dome us with a bunch of damage here. Urza's Rage. That's 3, and then they can just kill us with the mana lands in play right now. Yep. That felt very difficult. But we have something for this. We have a bunch of red blasts. Do we need something like Hoodwink to blow up a disc, or are we just going to try and go around the disc? I don't think our opponent tapping out for disc is necessarily the best thing they can do. I like the Tangle Wires here. This is a matchup where the Tangle Wire does shine. Altar of Dementia looks good. Tsabo's Web looks good. We're getting to a bit of an awkward one where we're trying to work out what we're taking out. I think we want Impulse because we want to be able to dig. I think it's actually just Lotus Petals here. That does reduce our artifact count, but we have artifacts here still. I think you're okay to board 4 artifacts out. When you're boarding out more, it gets a bit awkward, but I think 4 is a fine number. So we're going to have these in. Maybe we'll get caught out with the Nev's Disc at some point, but hopefully Tangle Wire stops that from coming in for a time, and the Pyroblast and defense grids can get us where we need to go. We want to turn 1 defense grid off Ancient Tomb. So I don't believe our opponent has the ability to run things like Thwart or Foil because they don't necessarily have enough islands in their deck to rely on those. Okay. I like this one enough. Tsabo's Web gives us a lot of time. We're not going to get chipped down with a bunch of man lands. Now, our opponent's going to have a million annuls in their deck. So we need to decide if we're playing into a null or not. We could just Impulse instead of doing a null. If they play a tap land, obviously we just fire off the Tsabo's Web. So this looks like a really telegraphed a null to me. So I'm just going to play this Gemstone Mine and then pass with the intention of impulsing because this doesn't get clipped by an null. And we can do this in our opponent's turn and see what they're about. So we can impulse right now, or we can try and make our opponent fight over this using their mana. And I don't mind them fighting over an impulse. Now, our Gemstone Mine is not going to live forever. So this is a little bit sketchy in terms of our mana base here. So I wouldn't mind finding some reliable mana off of this impulse. But we'll see what we find. Okay, Shivan Reef is reliable here. Defense grid also really good. I think we take the defense grid. We're kind of in here for a bit of a longer game. We didn't find the land. Do I want to burn this? I think we're going to cast an impulse right now with the intention of trying to find a land. Our opponent hasn't been casting interaction on our impulse, so they might not this time. Although this does look a lot like we're trying to find a land. So they might say, let's try and stop that, let their Gemstone Mine die. Tinker is obviously part of our win condition, but I think what we really need right now is mana. As annoying as that is. We'll find the combo pieces at some point. We can't allow our land to go, because we need to have like a big burst turn at some point. And if we don't find a land, then we're going to end up getting jammed up, because our Gemstone Mine's not going to be around anymore. So the plan is probably defense grid with red elemental blast backup. That's going to be our plan for next turn. If we lose our Gemstone Mine to secure a defense grid, that's a trade I'm okay to make. If we find ourselves with access to an additional land, then that's even better for us. Now, annul is a thing they have as well, so they could maybe annul and fire off another spell. Okay, so let's go for defense grid. This is obviously going to draw the ire of a counterspell here. Prohibit. So we are going to red blast this prohibit. Do they have an annul as well? Or like a force spike style effect here? Or are we just in with the defense grid? We're in with the defense grid. Okay. That is a trade that I'm okay making. Maybe they don't have an annul then. We pegged them on annul when they just played the island pass, but maybe they're just representing it because they know that's going to mess us up. Or they can hold up an annul through the defense grid using all their mana, which is also fine. A Gemstone Mine. I'm okay to deploy this Altar of Dementia, which I don't care if they kill. You can annul this. You spend 4 mana to annul this, I'm okay, because we have lots of this half of the combo. So we're just trying to bait out a little bit of counter magic here. So Navinrel's Disc is something they could play next turn, but I think if they had 4 mana, maybe they just play it this turn. I don't think we have enough stuff to board out 4 answers for Nev's Disc in our deck. I just don't think that's a way that we can afford to play this game. Because the Tsabo's Webs are really good. Like, if the Tsabo's Webs weren't good in the matchup, then maybe we could board in some answers, but then we're going a bit lower on artifacts. Mishra's Factory. That gives us a reason to use Tsabo's Web. Cool. Tinker. I don't hate that one. So I would like to actually play this Tangle Wire here. This is probably going to get a response from our opponent because this is going to tap them out of interacting through our defense grid. Because we have the win available soon. Alright. So then they're going to have to pay 3 extra for this one for their counterspell. Sure. Another Mishra's Factory. Sure. So they're really just trying to play through the defense grid. It's a bold strategy. Let's get another defense grid in. Really just say no to what you're doing there, opponent. We're a mana away from winning the game as well. Because we can use this and this to tinker. And if we have 1 more mana, we can fling. And if our opponent sees the writing on the wall with the defense grid and decides to tap lower, then we can sacrifice one of our defense grids without issue. Alright, they're just lightning bolting our face. And we're in with the defense grid. Okay. So we want our opponent to tap out of being able to interact with our spells if we only have one defense grid. So they should be playing something out on their turn here because they can't play through this defense grid. Right, they're activating a factory. They're going to activate the other one. Please do. And then hopefully we draw a land and we just get to win this game. Excellent. Okay, so we're going to take some damages. If we don't draw the land, we can still play the Tsabo's Web, which is going to shut our opponent's 3 lands down, which is pretty darn good for a 1 spell. Are we going to have one of our permanents destroyed? Okay, they're just firing us. They just want to get the game over and done with. They don't really have any other options because we have 2 defense grids in play. Can we draw a mana and win the game? I don't believe our opponent's going to have any shuffle back in effects here. Actually, we don't care about the shuffle in effects, right? Because we're going to sacrifice the Altar of Dementia. And we're just flinging them. Yeah, okay, we're just super fine here. Land? Not a land. We still win with the Altar of Dementia kill, though. We don't have to fling here. So, 1, 2... I guess we don't have to sacrifice our land here. Sacrifice one of our defense grids. Go and get the Devourer. And mill you out, opponent. Alright. Getting to the final game here. I don't think we want the bounce effects. I think I like how I've sideboarded and we're just going to go in. Defense grid is very good. Our opponent being on the play is really bad news for us though, because this means they get 2 mana to interact with our 2 mana play. Defense grid is probably one of the most important cards in the matchup. Tsabo's Web also pretty good. So we'll keep this one even though it's a bunch of lands. Just making land drops is also fine for us. Another Tsabo's Web. Alright. I think we're probably doing Tsabo's Web into Tsabo's Web. And then we can start with a defense grid around softer permission. But we'll see how this turn pans out. A Mishra's Factory. Okay. They are not going to let the Tsabo's Web resolve. Maybe we play the defense grid first. I think we have to play out the city here. Because we're looking to play a longer game when we need to get more mana out of our spells. Do I want to defense grid or Tsabo's Web here? I think we fire off one Tsabo's Web. It's going to be counterspelled. But this is going to limit our opponent's interaction. There's no way they can let this resolve. It's just a double strip mine. Force Spike. Yikes. Okay. Wasn't expecting this Force Spike. We hadn't seen it yet. It's not completely like unprecedented to have 4 spikes in decks like this. 4 spike though. Very rude. We're going to go for the defense grid now. Around a 4 spike. I think we probably should have tapped the City of Brass rather than removing a counter for our Gemstone Mine. So our land can survive longer. Alright, goodbye to our defense grid via the counterspell here. The fact that they're playing out all these man lands has definitely increased the potency of this Tsabo's Web. Altar of Dementia. Are they going to counterspell that? We could play out the City of Traitors here in order to give us enough mana to play both around a 4 spike. I like that a lot. Let's go for the Altar of Dementia. Surely you want to interact with my combo piece, opponent. Surely. Oh, an AK. Are they digging for an answer? Alright. I will very much drop this Tsabo's Web and see if this ends the game or not. It's going to be pretty good. Basically, all the things that could have countered this Altar of Dementia. Alright, our opponent said too much in chat, so this is what the game is actually about most of the time. An AK. So that's an interesting AK, because that taps them out of 2 mana permanently. So they must have something worth doing on 0 mana. I'm not really sure what that is. Because Daze isn't going to work there. I don't believe they can run foil in their deck. Maybe I'm wrong and they do have foil. But look at this. This is absolutely savage. We don't have a way of winning the game right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Do I want to play out this Ancient Tomb? 7 mana. We kind of need 8 mana. So I'm just going to play out this Gemstone Mine. It does look a bit awkward. But I think making sure that we had enough mana to secure both of our plays last turn was really key. So they still have the ability to counterspell us. So we're not out of the woods yet. But their win conditions are in a pretty horrible state of disrepair right now. And we're just going to build out our mana, eventually draw something that allows us to punch through. So we've got Red Blast as well in there. Right, we'll play out this Ancient Tomb. We have plenty of mana. We can tinker away this Altar of Dementia pretty comfortably, but I would like to have a little bit more insurance first. I think we play out this Gemstone Mine. I'm not just going to run a tinker into 4 open blue mana. Now, they didn't have counter spells before. Alright, Fact or Fiction. You can have an Annul or all of these cards. I don't care about any of these cards. The old 4-1 split. The dream, though, is where you get a Fact or Fiction pile where you make it a 5 and 0 split. It doesn't happen very often, but there are situations where that is the correct thing to do. Usually involving Black Vice. Wow, they took the 1 Annul. I think that's correct. But Annul doesn't hit the Tinker, which is very funny to me. Can we draw a Red Blast or a Defense Grid this turn? That would be nice. Second Tinker. What about second Tinker? Do we think they have 2 regular counter spells? Because if we lose our Tsabo's Web, that is a real issue. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we can easily cast Devourer and a Fling if we want to. I think we just pass here. If they have another Fact or Fiction, that is the worst case scenario for us. I'm not a big lover of them casting an AK here either. They had neither, so they probably just have a bunch of interaction in hand. So I think we're right to slow roll this and try and find our way towards a little bit of disruption of what their plan is. A Pyroblast. Is 1 Pyroblast good enough? I think it actually is. Actually, we're not under pressure, but there is this pressure of what if our opponent has Fact or Fiction, but it didn't have it last turn. Alright, I'm going to give it another turn and see if we can find another Pyroblast or Red Blast. We've got 7 of them to draw in our deck, I think. So we got 3 more Red Blasts, and then we've got the 4 Defense Grids. Either of those works out for us. And our opponent's not playing lands, they're not pressuring us. They've got to have action in hand. Tsabo's Web. I would like to draw some additional cards, please. It's a little bit awkward with our Gemstone Mines here, but I think that's okay. We just want to preserve our life totals so we don't just get burned out randomly. Can I have a Tsabo's Web? Our opponent says, yes, we can. Another Tinker. So this casts 2 Tinkers. This casts the 3rd Tinker. Okay, I think next turn we can have a go at it because we have like a spare Tsabo's Web. Yep, just blowing our face because there is the pressure of our opponent just doming us a bunch and then we die. Alright, 6 cards in hand is so many cards. A Tangle Wire. Okay, we changed our tune on what we're doing here. The one-sided Tangle Wire, please. Let's go for this Tangle Wire. I'm going to preserve our life total at the cost of counters on our Gemstone Mines. An Annul. We knew they had the Annul. Are we going to try and rip this through? I think we are going to try this one. Are we? So they'll tap down 4 lands. 1, 2, 3, 4. They still have up counterspell mana. I think that's fine. I guess we kind of knew that was happening because we knew the Annul, but I think it's still worth getting cards out of our opponent's hand. Oh, I don't have a Fact or Fiction as well. AK, that's just as good. Alright, this game is very finely poised right now. Even though we locked out 3 of their lands, we are kind of at parity, I would say. I was really hoping they would use something other than the Annul for that. Ice. Sure, this deals us 1 damage and draws them a card. Nice. It's almost as good as Fire, but getting to draw a card as well. Another island. Our opponent is very happy to just keep making islands here. Another Tsabo's Web. I don't think that's where we want to be, but drawing an extra card here might be useful. Alright, I think we're going to use the Ancient Tomb this time. We've preserved our life total a bit, but we have to start doing the thing here. Mind Stone. Okay, I think we are casting this Mind Stone now. I think next turn we just have to go for it because the pressure of our opponent burning us down. 5 mana. What is this? Prophetic Bolt. Yep, this is what I mean about them just being able to burn us down. So next turn we're going to try and steamroller our way through. These Ancient Tombs are a little bit spooky. The old Fireblast plus Impulse in 1 card. And a Latnam's Legacy to get rid of something they didn't want in their hand. I think our opponent's going to win this game if I'm being honest. Like, this is one of the worst matchups I can imagine where they just have a wall of interaction and they're just playing entirely at instant speed. So we could draw a card from this Mind Stone. I don't think I'm going to. Altar of Dementia. It's not really the one here. Okay, let's go for a Tinker on this Tsabo's Web. I'm not expecting the spell to resolve. Let's go for a Tinker. I'm not enjoying the amount of life we're having to pay here though. Targeting, sacrificing our Tsabo's Web. A counter spell. I think we are red blasting this. So they could fire off another counter spell. They can kick a Prohibit. That's pretty good here as well. And then we're quite likely to die on their turn. They could also just kill us right now. Pyroblast targeting the Tinker. That's pretty strong. So I think our last hurrah here is to Tinker again, sacrificing the Mind Stone. We are dead to Lightning Bolt. We are dead to Counterspell here. Force Spike. I can't pay for a Force Spike. Okay, and then our opponent just needs to do us 3 damage in their deck full of Lightning Bolts and Prophetic Bolts. But they might not have it. It's possible. Nevinrar's Disc. Okay. We're still alive. An Altar of Dementia. That's not the one. So they pop the disc, but their guys won't untap this turn because this needs to be untapped first. So they pop the disc and then we die. So we have 1 draw step, but we have to get through the disc. I don't think this is going to go well for us. We don't have anything here. We are dead. Alright, pretty brutal one for last game, but we did show that we could beat that sort of deck. Before we talk about this deck, I would also like to have an extra game with a slightly different list of this same deck. So stick around, we're about to play another game. I'm just going to go with this other deck though. So because I'm helping my friend test, I would like to try and test this particular build out, which is a bit different. This is a build that Neon Mushroom has been playing on their channel, and I think this build looks really interesting. So we've got a few differences here. We've got Sky Diamonds in here, so we have more mana that we can ramp out. We have the Chromatic Spheres, which can help us fix our mana as well and turn our colorless into colored mana, as well as just being a nice thing. You know, we can pop the sphere via the Tinker, but this also has Factual Fiction, so we're digging a lot deeper. So we're going to run one game with this one just to see how this one feels. Sideboard-wise, Defense Grid is good. Why not have 4 more things that are like Defense Grid that can come down on turn 1 so your opponent can't have 2 mana for counter spells. Other than that, the sideboard is somewhat similar. We've got some Seal of Cleansings that I quite like, and the Phyrexian Processor as the backup plan, which you can tinker for and just have a massive guy against decks that can't deal with it. So we're going to try a game with this particular build as well, and then we'll talk about everything at the end. Okay, this is our opener. We've got some pretty stable mana. We'll keep this on. Factual Fiction is nice. We've got these islands as well, which is going to be a good thing to avoid some of the problems we may have been having before. Okay, Ops. This feels like our opponent is playing Dreadnought. That's kind of what this says to me. They could be playing a bunch of different decks, like a Threshold deck as well. Will our opponent counter a Sky Diamond? We've got the Crosa's Catacombs. That's a cool card that I was talking about earlier that this particular list runs. Let's play the Sky Diamond. Is it worth counterspelling? It allows us to Factual Fiction next turn, which is pretty huge. Can really put a cat amongst the pigeons with that. Another Factual Fiction. Okay, I guess we're just going to hold up. Our opponent's going to be wary of counter magic. We don't have any, but they don't know that. They didn't do anything on our end steps, so no accumulated knowledge, flash of insight, any of that sort of jazz. We could be looking at Psychotog here. Alright, let's go for this Factual Fiction. I think if they have a counter spell, they'll point it at this, because this card is obviously really potent. Wow, they're just letting us have it. Okay. Pretty good. How do you split this? Interesting. I would like to make some land drops, I think. We're just going to choose pile 2 here. Another Devourer, okay. Shivan Reef here. We're going to deploy an Altar of Dementia. We're going to get some interaction out of our opponents. Then we're going to be doing some impulsing and digging our way. So what do we got here? Prohibit. We're just going to use this impulse in our opponent's turn. Yeah, this does look a lot like Psychotog to me. There are lots of islands playing like the one or two swamps to grab with polluted deltas. The cantrip in, filling up your graveyard, counter magic. Yeah, Cephalid Colosseum as well. That can fuel a Psychotog nicely. Alright, let's do some impulsing. I do want to keep making land drops. But I kind of just want this impulse, I think. We're trying to work our way up towards stopping our opponent. They know what we're doing because of the fact or fiction. It should be pretty clear what our deck is accomplishing here. Okay. Quite like the Tsabo's Web. So we can use the Crosa's Catacomb to reset Gemstone Mines as well as City of Traitors. So I'm a big fan of this card. So let's go for 1, 2. Let's get this Tsabo's Web in. A Gemstone Mine. We can Impulse or we can Fact or Fiction. I think we don't want to be discarding cards. We're probably going to be impulsing here. Okay, the parade of accumulated knowledges has begun. A zombie infestation. This is definitely Psychotog. This is like the backup plan for the Psychotog decks. Alright, let's... I think we just want to do this rather than Fact or Fiction. Mindstone Fling. Okay, Defense Grid. It's Defense Grid. It's always Defense Grid. Let's go. How do you feel about my Defense Grid opponent? A Gush. Sure. So we could be seeing like a foil here, and they needed to put islands back in their hands to make that work, or they could just be digging for an answer of some description. Should we know that this Cephalid Colosseum won't untap if they tap it due to our Tsabo's Web. They discarded some lands to make a zombie token, but they didn't discard a circular logic. Okay, they're really digging here. We have 5 mana, so we can't actually win the game this turn. Sickening Dreams being discarded. Maybe there's something else going on here. Maybe it isn't Psychotog. Okay, we're in with this. I'm going to go to the second main phase just to burn off this mana that our opponent has. So 1, 2, 3. That gets us a Tinker. But then what are we doing with the rest of our mana at that point? Interesting. Okay, I think we're going to cast this Fact or Fiction. It's weird timing, but Defense Grid means it has to be that timing. Okay, so they're going to split up the Altar of Dementia and the Fling, I think. Oh, wow, they're putting them together. Interesting. I guess they have to split up the Devourer and these. They don't know that we're sat here with 2 Devourers and a Tinker. This is not a good pile for our opponent to have to puzzle through. Devourer and Fling or Altar of Dementia and Impulse. I guess we choose pile 1 here. And then just play out Ancient Tomb into this Altar of Dementia. Cabal Therapy would be pretty annoying for us, but I can live with that. I'm not 100% sure what else our opponent's deck is trying to do here. Maybe they're like a Krovakan horror deck and they got some squeeze in there as well and they're just trying to leverage this. Sure, so the Duress is good here. They can take probably the Tinker. If they can follow us up with a Cabal Therapy, then we can be in a lot of trouble. But we've got a lot of ability to dig here. And they're a blue-black deck, so answering Altar of Dementia in play is going to be tricky. If they hold up 3 mana here, it probably means they have foil. They should probably just play something else, whether it's a draw spell or whatever, and just use their mana, unless they have the foil. Right, we're going to take 2 from this zombie token. Psychotog. Okay, so they are a Psychotog deck. They just have a few slightly unusual choices. But our hand is deterministically able to kill them. So, not 100% sure why they haven't scooped up. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Play the Devourer. I don't believe our opponent's deck has a way of shuffling their graveyard in here. Now, they could be on some spice. It's always possible. Right, our Devourer's now got the trigger on. Let's just mill our opponent out here. Now, this will give them a Psychotog that's lethal, but the Psychotog's pretty close to lethal anyway. I haven't done the maths. They might just be wanting to see more of our deck. They might not be that familiar with it, and they just want to have a little bit more of a taste of what we're up to over here. See if we've got any interesting silver bullets or unusual tech. I'll do one more for good measure. Let's mill them for the whole deck. Is there anything here that gets us? I can't see anything here. They got back to basics. That's interesting. Alright, we just pass a turn and see if our opponent's dead or not. They can make a very large Psychotog here. Alright, we did get the game, they just wanted to see our deck. That's fair enough. Sideboarding. I would like some of these sort of things. I think our combo is good, that we don't want the processor. Does our opponent have Engineered Plague, though? Psychotog is certainly a deck that can play Engineered Plague. Which is where we can broaden the Phyrexian processor and just make a bunch of big guys. Maybe I will play the processor. So, what are we getting rid of here? So the Chromatic Sphere helps us cast the Xanthid Swarms. It's kind of an awkward one to try and board this in. Maybe we're trying to get rid of some of like the... I don't know how we're supposed to board with this one. This particular list feels quite tricky. It's just got so many good cards in it. But this is surely a matchup where the Xanthid Swarm is where we want to be. Maybe the Tsabo's webs aren't at their strongest. So maybe we'll have like... when we'll trim one of these, like one of these. And then we need to try and find space for these Pyroblast if we want them. If the game's going slower, do we need this? But we do need this critical massive artifacts for our Tinker. So maybe we're just like trimming on some of these things and just trying to make sure that we can resolve. Maybe can we trim a Devourer here? We can tinker for it most of the time anyway. Maybe we can trim one Devourer. Can we trim a Fling? I don't think we can trim a Fling. I do want these Pyroblasts in there. Maybe we can trim... maybe we can trim a Fling. Because our spells are more likely to resolve, so we don't need as many of them. Maybe I'll take out an Impulse and just have this Pyroblast. Because our opponent's going to give us time. Psychotog is not a quick deck. Even if it wants to try and be quick, it doesn't really have that lever. Like maybe you can do some zombie infestation, get a few boys ready and start beating down. But Psychotog itself needs you to get through a decent chunk of your deck before you can kill, because you need to have all this stuff in your bin. Phyrexian Processor. I guess this is an interesting keep. I don't know if it is a keep, but we're going to try it because I want to see how this feels. You can just Mind Stone our way to victory. Wouldn't mind an Ancient Tomb here, not an Ancient Tomb. Alright, so we've drawn the Xanthid Swarm that we can't do anything with. We do have a Pyroblast that we can point at stuff. Is our opponent going to interact with a Mind Stone? Probably not. I think it's worth playing this into a potential Daze. We don't have another land secured, so we don't know if we're going to be able to play around a Daze next turn anyway. Alright, the AKs have begun. The first one, not a problem. But they do get significantly worse for us every time they cast one at this point. 3 mana. Back to basics. Yup. That's pretty bad. Okay. Red land. I'll deploy this sphere. And pass. Yeah, back to basics is rough. I'm glad we've got these Pyroblasts in. We did see the back to basics. So it's not really a mystery to us. A Gemstone Mine. I will deploy the Gemstone Mine. I will add a green to play the Xanthid Swarm. Are you going to interact with it? This is trying to bait out a situation where we can Pyroblast this back to basics. Because we can use the filtering off of the Chromatic Sphere to get there. Okay. Do they have removal for this? Uncertain. They're just going to Factor Fiction end of turn. They are going to Factor Fiction end of turn. Alright, I think this is our opportunity to destroy the back to basics here. Alright, we destroy the back to basics. An accumulated knowledge and an annul. So we probably want to split up the two good spells here. But then we have to work out where is the land going. So we don't really care whether or not they shuffle. So this is basically the same as either of these. This is the more expensive spell, so we probably want to put 1 land with this and 2 lands with this. So the swamp is probably the worst land. I think this is okay. I don't think this is a fine pile. I'm not in love with the situation we found ourselves in, though. Alright, they took the pile with the AK. So we can untap, drop the Phyrexian Processor, and just start making guys. Provided our Xanthid Swarm makes it round the table and gets to attack. Engineered Plague. This is going to be on the Xanthid Swarm or on the Construct. What are they more scared of? The Xanthid Swarm. Okay, so they've got blue up, so that's counterspell mana. Cool. Interesting choices available to us here. We can go Mind Stone into Factor Fiction on our opponent's turn. No, we can't. We haven't got the mana for that, right? So we're just going to play this Chromatic Sphere. and just have our opponent have a turn. We need to try and... There's so much card advantage our opponents get. We need to try and find a way to make something resolve. I think if we can resolve the processor, we're in pretty good shape. A duress. Don't really want to see that. What do you take here? I think there's a lot of options. They could take... Like, they can ignore the Devourer if they have access to another Engineer Plague. The processor is our way of beating Second Plague, so if they take this, that probably means that's what they have. I think taking the Fact or Fiction and just sitting on your counter spells is very strong for our opponent. They agreed, and we are in trouble. Engineer Plague on Devourer is going to be Phyrexian, because that makes our processor token smaller as well as making our Devourer non-comboable. Yep, they've named Phyrexian. So I would like to draw a red blast, please. A Fling is not a red blast here. I think we sacrifice this for a green mana, just in case we draw the thing we need. Okay, we didn't draw that. I think I'm going to sacrifice this for a card as well. See if we can find Xantid Swarm. Another chromatic. Oh, let's use the green mana. I didn't necessarily want to do that. We can sacrifice this now for a green. I think that's fine as well. Okay, we have a plan. We can Phyrexian Processor with the Pyroblast backup next turn, but how much mana is our opponent going to have open? Are they going to be able to cast multiple counterspells? They don't have the most cards in hand. You know, 5 is still quite a lot, but I'm assuming they're going to make a land drop, so that's 4 action spells. Maybe they'll commit a Psychotog this turn. Or we're just going to be in the dirt here. Another Fling. These Flings are so bad. Alright, I think we're drawing a card off of this Mind Stone now. An Undiscovered Paradise. So, if we play the Processor and they have the answer, that's it. We're kind of completely cold to this Plague. So I think we just have to pass. And if they gas up with a Fact or Fiction, then yeah, this is the Psychotog life. Psychotog is one of the best decks against combo decks in the format, in my opinion, because you have duresses and counterspells. It's just like so much. I'm going to concede to this, I think. I'd like enough time to play the last game, and these games can get a bit grindy. This is a horrible pile to build as well. So, do we need to have more answers to their Engineer Plague? So we could board in a couple of seals. But then what are we doing, right? Are we just going even lower on these sorts of things? Maybe I can take out another Fling, because our backup plan obviously doesn't really want the Fling to be in hand. This is a bit of a weird boarding plan. We'll see how it fares. A strange hand. A very strange hand. I think I will keep this one and try it out, because we have a lot of mana here. We have 2 of the cards that we desperately need to even have a chance in this matchup. So, even though we don't have our combo pieces, I like what we're putting down. We do need to Undiscover Paradise to get our little guy in, but this can come in before any sort of counter magic is available. Love a Xantid Swarm. But from here on out, our hand is pretty slow, because we don't really have anything we're building towards. But I'm okay with that. Let's attack with our Xantid Swarm. So the Chromatic Spheres here are kind of nice, because they are cantrips to try and find us into more action, whilst also being a artifact to sacrifice the Tinker and fixing our mana and allowing our colourless sources to be better. So I think there's a lot to like about this Sphere build. This is definitely the hardest matchup I think we've had to play all day, though. A Fling. Oh, we could Fling our Xantid Swarm. I'll never see it coming. Alright, let's attack with the Xantid Swarm. We don't want our opponent to know when we're going. And they're not going to flash in any guy that can deal with this. It's a bit like when you activate Vase and your opponent's end step in Legacy. You don't want them to know when you are playing something and when you're not, because it might change the way they do. Because if we don't attack with this, we go to attack with it one turn, then all of a sudden, you know, maybe that's when they choose to use a Stifle that they might have been sandbagging or something. We use E-Plaguing. We are E-Plaguing. That is unfortunate for our poor little Xantid Swarm. But this is an E-Plague on Xantid Swarm and not an E-Plague on Phyrexian Devourer, which shuts down our whole deck. A Gemstone Mine. I don't think we're in a position to start cantripping off this bauble, off this sphere yet, sorry. Can we just leave it? It's a shame that Chromatic Star isn't legal, because Chromatic Star is just better because it's when it dies you get a card. So even if you tinker it, you get the card. But that card is not legal in this format. Okay, something is happening in our upkeep, which is a weird timing. Okay, we have an Altar of Dementia. I think I'm okay to pass here. We want to have a little bit more going on here. If our opponent plays a Factual Fiction, I think I might be inclined to Pyroblast. Because it kind of feels like a 3-for-1 if you Pyroblast a Factual Fiction, because that's often how many cards Factual Fiction is getting. Alright, we're just going to stare at each other making land drops. Okay, another Red Blast. Pretty happy to see that one. No Factual Fiction at end steps. They must have 5 pieces of interaction or lands and interaction. I guess they could have like Cyclotogs they don't feel ready to deploy. That's reasonable. A Xantid Swarm, you say. I'll tap this for green. And I'll deploy this Croesus Catacomb and reset the Gemstone Mine. Then I will deploy a Xantid Swarm. Okay, that's not going to work very well for us because of the Engineer Plague. But maybe our opponent made a mistake and tried to deal with it. I don't think we're playing the Altar of Dementia right yet. Like, we can't remove this E-Plague, but maybe our opponent forgets it's their encampment spells are Xantid Swarm. Stranger things have happened in games of Magic the Gathering. And we want to get our Croesus Catacomb down anyway. We don't have any way of using excess cards. Engineered Plague. Now this is a problem. So this is going to name Phyrexian. So we need to deal with our Phyrexian processor. That's how we win this game. So we need to keep an artifact that we can do stuff with. A Devourer. What horrible timing. Let's play our Gemstone Mine out first. Let's deploy this Altar of Dementia. This gives us another thing that we can tinker away. I don't think our opponent cares about this that much. But if this is in play, it allows us to sack this and draw a card. Yep, like I said, I don't think our opponent cares about this. It just allows us to use this Chromatic Sphere for something. We're all in on the processor, so we need to find a processor or one of our 4 tinkers. Another Pyroblast. Yeah, would have been great if it wasn't for this Engineer Plague. I don't think we need to do anything just yet. No, thank you, opponent. Let's counter-target spell if it's blue. No Factual Fiction for you. This is also like really good for their clock as well, because it means that their Cyclotog can deal a whole bunch more damage, because this puts cards in the graveyard and in their hand. I will fight for this one. A counter spell, sure. I will counter it again. No Factual Fiction and you burn a counter spell. Can we please find the processor? Back to basics. No, thank you. Uh-oh, SpaghettiOs. I don't realistically know how we're supposed to beat Cyclotog as a deck. This deck feels unbeatable for us. Tinker. So we have a Tinker. Our opponent might have some mana up here. We don't have 4 mana to even start activating our thing, even if we do Tinker for it. I just think we're just locked by what our opponent's doing. Like, maybe they have nothing going on. This is a land that keeps coming back, though. Maybe we should have tapped this for the Red Blast instead of the Shivan Reef. Accumulated knowledge. I'd like to find another land here. Altar of Dementia. Let's turn this into red mana. Or blue mana's fine, I guess. Sky Diamond. Okay. We can cast that. So our Undiscovered Paradise will return to our hand, so we'll get out of the Back to Basics lock with that. And then we have another piece of mana here. Our opponent might interact with this. I think we are very dead, but there are some slim chances that we can do something here. So what we need to do is do a Phyrexian Processor and then pay like a huge amount of life, maybe like 10 life, and then have 1 activation of it off of our lands and hope that's enough to get us over the finish line. Don't mind the Gemstone Mine. Our opponent almost certainly has interaction here. If we play the Undiscovered Paradise... Alright, I think we're just going to go for the Tinker here, assuming that it doesn't get better for us over time. We can activate the thing next turn. Yeah, How are we ever going to pay for a mana league underneath this back to basics? A fling, an exciting fling. Okay, let's get another artifact that we can tinker away later, please. I don't really want this game to go to timeout. I think our opponent will win before the clock finishes. Because they play a Psychotog and then they kill us in like a couple of turns, really. Because the Psychotog can hit for crazy damages. A null, sure. I think that's correct, just to stop us having material. Because we don't really want to tinker away a Skydiving, because we won't be able to activate our processor. Chromatic Sphere. Plays Gemstone Mine, and we will pass the turn. I don't want to have to surrender my permanents to the back to basics. So if we wait for our island to be untapped, then we get to be in a better spot there. A Sky Diamond. Let's have a Sky Diamond, please. It's an annul. An island, that's exciting. Let's turn this into blue mana. A Crystal Vein. I will just play out this island and I will pass a turn. Like maybe we're supposed to board in Hoodwinks, but how are we supposed to fit Xantid Swarms and Pyroblast in our deck, as well as playing like Hoodwink, Rushing River? There's just not enough space to have enough tools to beat the Psychotog deck, so we have to just go for this try and process them out plan. Alright, so now we have a Wink Edition. This should be able to wrap this game up. It also makes our Phyrexian processor plan look a lot worse. Shivan Reef. Okay. They're probably just going to make one guy at this turn and then just pressure us with this one guy. What do they get rid of? A Smother and a Swamp. So the Smother is something that can hit our processor tokens. Oof. An AK, drawing 2 cards. I think they should have AK'd before making the zombie token. They're making another zombie with some islands being pitched. That makes sense. So maybe they didn't have very much going on in their hand. Had a bunch of islands and Smother, Swamp. Duress, you got it. We don't have a lot going on here. We at least have enough mana that we can activate the processor every turn once we get it. Seal of Cleansing. Hello. Maybe they don't have anything. Or maybe they just have a counterspell. Okay. I think we've boarded as much as we can. Maybe we've overboarded. I don't know. But obviously we're pretty cold to this engineer play. We've got one more seal in our deck. We are running out of time. The processor's not going to be very good. I'm not going to try the trick to see if our opponent counterspells this again. Yeah, so they have lethal this turn because they can bash for 4 this turn. It puts us to 6. And they can just make a guy in our end step if they don't need the spells that they have in their hand. I think we are very cold. Alright, a Chromatic Sphere. Let's play the sphere out. We're swinging big here. It's all we've got to do. Draw a card, add. It doesn't matter what colour mana we add. We drew a Gemstone Mine. We are dead. Yep, that matchup feels unwinnable. So I did want to show off this other build. We didn't really get a great chance because our opponent had some pretty terrifying stuff against us. I don't think this deck can really beat Psychotog. Like, sure, we maybe get draws where we go Ancient Tomb, Defense Grid on turn 1, and then we snowball out and get them, but they have so many things that are really good against us. Maybe we're supposed to mulligan really aggressively to try and find the Ancient Tomb Defense Grid, but then what if they have an answer for it? You know, they could have Powder Keg. It's quite a common one that you would see out of Psychotog, and that can just tick up and blow this up, and then we get nowhere. So, yeah, real tough, but I really like this particular build. If we compare it to this one, it has the same number of lands. This one has the Tangle Wire plan, which is sometimes good, sometimes not so good. I definitely think Tangle Wire can help in some of the controller matchups where you force their lands to be tapped so that you can untap and cast your things. So it certainly wouldn't be ashamed to have some of that in our deck if we were going for this Flinker build. But I think having access to this mana base is quite tempting. Like the Chrysalis Catacombs, resetting your Gemstone Mines and your City of Traitors, I think that is really important. And being able to not pitch a load of life to City of Brasses is quite good too. Because we certainly found in the black-red matchup, our life total was under a lot of threat. And maybe if we didn't have as many City of Brasses, we get one more draw step. And sometimes one more draw step is all you need. I think both these lists are kind of similar. I think Fact or Fiction is pretty good. I think you could kind of split the difference between the two lists and maybe have like 2 Fact or Fiction in your list. Like maybe we want to go up to 4 Impulse, have 2 Fact or Fiction, and then we have another slot to play with so you can have the 4th defense grid in the main. Maybe you don't need Tangle Wire at all. There's just some various options that you can think of. I do like the Chromatic Sphere because it allows you to do these plays with a bunch of like colorless lands and then turn it into other mana. It also is just a nice cheap artifact that you can sacrifice. But sometimes Tangle Wire is also an absolute banger. But this is what we played for most of the day. I think also the sideboarding is different between the two decks. And I do like having the Seal of Cleansings and the Xanted Swarms. Obviously, the Xanted Swarms didn't look so good against the Psychotog, but I don't think whatever we're doing is going to look pretty good against Psychotog because that is like the combo killer. It's got Hand Disruption, it's got Counter Magic, it's very rarely tapping out. And then that particular build had Back to Basics as well, which absolutely shafted us. At least the build we were playing against it had the 2 islands. This build has no basics at all. But I at least think we showcased the highs and lows of what this deck can do. I do like the Pyroclasms, which is something that the other build doesn't have. So that's definitely worth noting as well. I think the Pyroclasms are a pretty good thing to have in your sideboard. And the other build has a lot of stuff we wanted to bring in at once. And sometimes that just means you have too many slots in your sideboard for that. So maybe trimming some of those other bits and having access to things like Pyroclasm would be quite sensible. I think this is going to help us versus some of the aggro matchups quite nicely, especially when they're playing Mesmeric Fiends and stealing our combo pieces. Just saying no is quite a good place to be. But yeah, this is the Phyrexian Devourer deck. It's one of the decks you should definitely know about. It's probably the best full-on A plus B combo deck. Now, Phyrexian Dreadnought, I don't really count as a full A plus B combo deck, but it kind of is. But it needs to like attack you twice and stuff. This is as soon as we assemble A plus B, the game ends. So that's a very different sort of deck, in my opinion. I think this is probably like the best out-and-out combo deck in the format that's like that. But then like Elves is also a combo deck. Depending on the build, some are less combo-y than others, but that can feel quite combo-y. But I still wouldn't put that in the full combo bracket like this. So if you like doing combo stuff, this is certainly a deck you can play. Now obviously City of Traitors are quite expensive, as are Ancient Tombs, but most pre-modern tournaments allow proxies. So this is definitely something that you could look to play. And at the end of the day, if you're spending money on City of Traitors and Ancient Tombs, they're almost certainly not going to be going down in value, right? They're just good things to have. They're probably going to accrue value, especially the City of Traitors, even though it is quite expensive now. I think Devourer is quite expensive for what it is as well. But that is the end of the league. I hope you enjoyed this one. We even got a bonus match out of it. And please remember to like and subscribe. It really does help the video out a lot and my channel. Let me know if there's anything that you would like to see on the channel pre-modern wise. I might get around to it at some point. I've got quite a big queue of these. Maybe we'll end up doing 2 pre-modern videos a week every now and then as well. Okay, thanks for watching and goodbye. If you'd like to support me in the channel, please check out my Patreon. It has a free guide to budget turbo depths as well as 3 tiers of support. A low cost one that enters you into my monthly raffle for a free donation deck on the channel, a mid-tier subscription that gives you access to my detailed turbo depths guide that is updated every month as well as regular articles, and lastly the higher tier gives you all of the above as well as a monthly donation deck for my channel. If you're interested in supporting the channel this way, please check out the link in the description.